Welcome Home, a podcast for veterans, about veterans by veterans, is a project of Willing Warriors and the Warrior Retreat at Bull Run.
Good morning. I'm your host, Larry Ziliaks, Director of Culinary Services here at the Warrior Retreat at Bull Run. And today with us, our guest is Captain Brittany Wooten, who is a chaplain for the Soldier Recovery Unit at Fort Belvoir, actually. And she's joined us because she has a number of soldiers out here this week at the retreat for a moral injury course. So welcome, Captain. We really appreciate you having some time to sit down with us and tell us a little bit about what this course is all about.
Well, thanks for having me, Larry. It's been really wonderful to experience. We've been here for a few days, but we're really grateful for your hospitality, and I'm really excited to be here chatting about what we're doing.
So tell us a little bit about this program, how it got started, you thought the reason was it's a good idea to have everybody come out, but I don't think many of our listeners think about moral injury when in terms of PTS, which I think plays a really big part, and I want to talk to you about that a little bit. But what was the impetus for starting this program?
Well, we are at the Soldier Recovery Unit. We focus on very distinct areas of recovery, and one of those areas is spirituality. And I think that's why a chaplain is there. That's my job, and I've been there for about a year at the SRU and realized that spirituality aspect, a lot of that healing is hard to do in a system that's focused on healing the body. The Army is notorious for helping our bodies exceed anything we ever thought that we could do. And I think the unique position of a chaplain is that we can encourage people to exceed the spiritual realm more than we ever thought we could. And what I mean by spirituality, I want to be very clear, is not necessarily a religiosity per se. Some people, that might be their spiritual, but by Army definition, they define spirituality as connection with others and hope in something for the future. Mm-hmm. And that's paraphrased. But they believe that everybody needs to have that hope for a future and connection with other people. And so in order to build that, I met with your team. They sponsor a wonderful space here that can't help but lend itself to being a spiritual space that you can recover in. Sure. And once I worked with the team and realized that you all have overwhelming hospitality, we worked out a plan to try and figure out what spiritual recovery looks like for these soldiers. And so many of the folks that are here with us today and will join us in future groups, God willing, are people that have encountered something that has challenged them along their journey in the military, not just physically, but something that has challenged the core of their spirituality, the core of their connection with other people and who they are, connection with other people and who they see and what they see hope to be in the future. And that can affect their physical recovery a lot. Mm-hmm. And so we've asked them to come here this week and dissect some of that. What are some of the things that you're struggling with? What are some of the things that have challenged your hope? What has ruined your connection with other people? And how can we rebuild that with one another? And so this is our pilot, but we're looking forward to doing it again. Just making sure that people have that space to do spiritual recovery.
So for our listeners who don't know that to be in treatment with the Soldier Recovery Unit, you have to have an injury or illness that requires treatment of at least 6 months. So many of the soldiers that are in the SRU have been there for quite some time. And just being there and being in treatment for that long can wear you down pretty quickly, I think. I'm very curious as to why this hasn't been a component of recovery before. I know things in the military take a long time, but is this a relatively new way to look at things, or Has it just been slow to be adapted?
The beauty of the military is that we get different people in leadership positions and we rotate out often enough that we try and bring fresh ideas in. And I think that soldier recovery units, because they have chaplains rotating out every 3 years, and because of a lot of changes, you may have heard of the soldier recovery unit, but you may have heard of it as warrior transition battalion or warrior transition unit or wounded warrior battalion. Millions of other titles, like dozens of other titles have been given to them because they're changing shape. The soldier recovery unit has changed so many different times, and soldier recovery unit is our name now because we've gone down to a company size element, and with that change, we've lost some staff members. So the spiritual department, our unit ministry team, is down to one person, myself, the chaplain. Typically, we would work in a team of at least 2, sometimes 4 in a hospital. The hospital right now at Fort Belvoir has a minimum of 4 chaplains, 3 enlisted folks, because that ministry takes a lot of people. So as we're paring down and getting to a smaller unit, we've transitioned. We don't have a whole lot of unit ministry team folks, and it's personality dependent what each chaplain brings in and our skills and what we can offer. So I would say that the reason this is coming up now is because, one, it's some of the work that I've been doing personally in my own education. I've been working really hard to educate myself on moral injury and chaplains' roles in healing that. And so I can bring that into this space here. And also I think that the other chaplains before me have done a good job of healing spirituality in different forms, but those were things that I didn't carry on because my personality didn't match where they were. And so now I am able to bring my personality and facilitate things like this. And God willing, other people can continue to do that work however they've been equipped.
Sure. Also, for some background for our listeners, I want to cut the Army a little slack here so that it doesn't sound like they're not interested and they're just sort of paring everything down because they're not interested. The reduction in force around the SRU and around the hospitals is most likely due to the fact that we're deconflicting around the world. When we first opened the retreat, we were looking at a battalion-size organization that encompassed both Walter Reed and Fort Belvoir, and the population of the SRU at that time was about 630. Within a year, it had dropped considerably, almost 40%. As we moved towards 2016, 2017, and on out of Afghanistan, we've seen just a reduction in the number of soldiers that are in the SRU. So that I wanted to make sure everybody understood what that was all about and why things were sort of shrinking down to a company size and a brigade instead of a battalion. I'm also very interested in the idea that this is spiritual component works side by side with the psychological component, and how important it is. One doesn't replace the other. Have you found any resistance within the organization to, well, we don't really need that, we're doing this over here? Or is management, we'll call it management, we used to call it the back office when I was in the Air Force, are they a little skeptical? Are they on board? Or what's do you think their position is? As much as you can say, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Oh no, I actually have only good things to say, and I truly believe that I am working with a command team that have a true passion for healing people. They're not here as a job, although they're doing a wonderful job. Right. Sure. They are just really committed people who have been in combat and have been hurt and injured themselves. That's a story that they share with every one of the soldiers at their newcomers brief. They have been there and they didn't have the benefit of an SRU, particularly our commander, Lieutenant Colonel Farrell. He didn't have that support system, and he came here with a passion to really invest and offer something to soldiers that makes a difference in their life. And so I say that because, and our sergeant major has a vast array of experiences, and both of them come together as a perfect team to really ignite creativity. That's really what I love about our program right now, is that those two have, and all of the senior leaders at the SRU have all come together and honored each one of our specialties. So we don't have many people that come into the SRU with this a specialty of healing spiritual wounds. But they honor that I have. And I've done my time in education and really worked at trying to offer something to the soldiers. And that is what a good command team can do. They can take all of those gifts and nurture them and say, hey, we trust you. We want to make sure you have leadership and guidance, but we trust you to do the healing that we know you're capable of doing. And so I personally have not had a lot of resistance at all, because they have created that space. And I haven't been perfect. I've made some mistakes. They've come alongside me and mentored me and helped me learn. But they have never once stood in my way for doing this spiritual work, this healing. I'm so grateful. I'm so blessed by that, because that may not. If Larry, you probably know more than anything that's not always the case with leadership, and so they are a true blessing to me and to, I think, the healing.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Before I forget, I think it might be good for our listeners if you were to define moral injury as it relates to what this course is, or what you're helping the soldiers with, because I'm thinking that, like everything else, there's a lot of definitions out there that float around.
Yes.
But what's your definition?
Well, that question, we spent a whole doctoral course on it, and we still did not come out with the same answer. So, but we did have to define it for ourselves. And so I come into this with an understanding of moral injury as an experience in our lives that has caused us to question goodness. That could be the goodness inside of us. It could be the goodness inside of one another. It could be the goodness inside of the world. But something has caused us to question that and wonder where it is. And that is why the connection, and that is why the hope is so important in healing moral injury, because sometimes we have experiences and they don't make us question hope. They're hard. They're inconvenient, they're painful, but we can still see the light that is filling us and drawing us forward. We still have healthy relationships with people around us. But unfortunately, there are those experiences that we weren't equipped for. We weren't ready. And our coping mechanisms weren't able to stop the damage of a broken relationship. And so moral injury could be something that comes from, because many of the soldiers at the recovery unit, most all of them come from a deployed environment and have had some sort of physical, psychological issue that caused them not to be able to stay in that environment anymore. And so they come to us. And something as simple as having a significant family event at home that caused a lot of stress, and then to be in a command environment that says you're faking it, we don't believe you, you're no good, we don't like you. For some of us, that may not affect us. We can shrug that off. But for other people that came into the military with the hope that this was their family and that they were doing something good, and they just weren't ready for what felt like a betrayal to them, they begin to question things. And so that can be a significant moral injury for people who weren't prepared for that. And then, you get the vast spectrum, people that come to the SRU who have been sexually assaulted. They now question, and some of that's PTSD. There's very good graphics. If anyone would like to look it up for themselves, there's good graphics online of where PTSD, Venn diagrams, PTSD, moral injury come together. And there's some things that overlap, and there's some things that remain distinct for just those two. But, someone that maybe was sexually assaulted would come to an SRU and they would have some PTSD, but they would likely have some question of, where's the good in the world? If this would happen to me, how can anything be good? And so that's where the role of the chaplain can come in, because we have wonderful experts that are treating that PTSD, but they're not talking to them about the hope. They're not restoring the hope in the sense that they can find goodness in the world again. They are. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be dismissive. I know they're doing good work, but we can do extra work. We can make sure that we're helping them ask those questions and guiding them. I mean, just the soldiers being here have walked in the forest and been reminded that there is goodness around them. And just a walk in the woods could change everything for them. So that's a very long-winded answer, but moral injury it's hard to define because it looks different for everyone.
Sure.
But it's also something that is so powerful when it gets realized. And when we realize we have lost that hope, then we get to a point where we can really do good work. And I think that's the people that are here are the ones that have realized that they can do a good work in healing themselves.
In relation to PTS, which do you think, or maybe it's neither, but is moral injury the result of PTS, or is PTS the result of moral injury? Or do they just coexist together almost always?
In my experience, I have found that they often coexist, but they can exist separately as well. And I say that because in my best understanding of PTS, it's a fear response, a response to something that's happened to us. So some of the expressions of PTS that are not necessarily moral injury are a startle response, constant arousal of our bodies, our heart rate, hypervigilance. Yeah. Those are the things that create PTS, and we can treat those. But that doesn't necessarily mean they've lost a sense of connection with the world. They just realize that they can't handle that stress and need to deconflict how to handle it. On the other end of that spectrum, someone with moral injury, you may have found that they did something in a combat environment. What really dug moral injury out and made it a prominent definition a couple decades ago, it hasn't been around in all of our time. It's a new definition. And what brought it out was people that were experiencing combat and would do things in combat that they didn't know how to reconcile when they came home. Taking the life of someone else, going into combat that they didn't believe they should be in, watching their friends pass away. Those may not have created this fear response, this startle response, but it made them question the deeper core of who they were. Can I still be a good person? Am I still capable of good things? Can I raise a family if I took the life of someone else? And those questions can exist without PTS, without expressions of PTS, but they come together in that a lot of the typical anxiety, depression. What are some other good ones? Sadness,
introversion, where they just withdraw.
Withdraw.
I almost think that it really needs to be part of core treatment. That it's just got to be a component of it, because when you see a soldier who has a below-the-knee amputation because of a roadside bomb or something, that's not their only injury. You can't have that and not have PTS and TBI. And I really think you can't have that without having PTS, TBI, and moral injury. I just think it really just needs to be part of the treatment almost all the time, I think. There are going to be some people that it's just not needed. And I think those people could be identified fairly quickly. And then it's just not part of their treatment protocol. But I really think it should be part of their overall treatment, because the treatment that we see for PTS today, people don't realize that it's really only effective about 50 to 60% of the time, if that. And I think that low number could be the result of this component of moral injury being left out of the treatment protocol. One thing I'm curious about is, how do you, at this early stage of the program, find soldiers who would benefit from this? Are they being identified by the staff at the SRU, or do you have to go find them, or what's sort of the protocol there to come up with candidates for coming out here or wherever you're going to do it? Even if someday you'd be able to do some sort of virtual program, I think would be great. But where do they come from? How do you find them?
I'd like to add to you made a point that not all PTS treatment does heal.
Right.
And that's actually how we found moral injury. I didn't know that. I'm so fascinated by that. We had a guest speaker come who's actually the subject matter expert for moral injury in the military. He's the one that started the course. He designed it and trained it. He has since retired. Chaplain Major retired Stephen Rindall, and he was gracious enough to be able to come out and teach a course for us here on what is moral injury and how we're addressing it. And he helped us see that there was a lot of treatment going on for PTS, but there was an element there that people weren't healing. And then we realized that was the spiritual component. Well, the physical treatment of PTS just couldn't address that. I think that's a prominent point. So thanks for sharing that, Larry. How do we find the folks here? The gift of chaplaincy, one of the greatest gifts the military has ever given us, is confidentiality. And that means that the things that people share with me, even to the extent of suicide, homicide, infidelity, abuse, all of those things become sacred confessions when you share them with the chaplain. I want to say, boldly that we're not going to let somebody hurt themselves, that we want to make sure everyone is safe. That's not why that was designed. Confidentiality gives us a special look into people's lives that they may not be sharing with other people. And so I have had the very unique privilege of being alongside soldiers that come into my office and can share anything. And they feel and they take advantage of that. And so some of the folks that are here are the folks that have shared things with me that I can see there's just that stuckness in them. There's something that they want to work past. They can see it, but they don't know how, because every day is filled with appointment. Every day is filled with do. And on the weekends, they want to be with their family. So they go home, because at the soldier recovery unit, many of them are in barracks, regardless of their rank. They are all in the barracks because their primary job is not to get their family, not to care for their family. It's to care for themselves.
To get better.
Yeah, to get better. And they don't have the ability to bring their families here. And so on the weekends, they want to be with them. So that is the benefit to this place, is that we pull everyone together away from the SRU and minimize the distractions. So some of the soldiers have shared with me stories that get them here. The other thing is the people that came here, we didn't just open it up. We asked for it to be a referral from somebody in their care team at the SRU. Because some of those other care team members get to see something that I wouldn't see. And so they want them to work on that aspect. And then the other part of it is, I would say, just divine intervention. Maybe you could say chance, because there are a couple soldiers here that I didn't know their story before they came. But they have since opened up, and they are able to help each other heal in a way that I could never have orchestrated ever. We have one of our soldiers has a non-medical attendant, an NMA is what we call them. And that individual that is with them is their mother. And she is here with us because they don't go anywhere separate from each other.
Sure.
And she has offered, I didn't orchestrate that. We didn't pick her. But she has come and offered so much healing to the people around her in a way that I think I would describe it as divine intervention, that I think God is continuing to work where we cannot and take those relationships. So how did they get here? Some were selected for stories. Some just made it here because they were a referral, and others just, I think God put them here for the perfect reason.
I agree. I think they're all special. And This is a special place that helps people. We see it all the time. We're very fortunate to be the ones that get to see it. We're really excited about this program. And I know we have you scheduled for a couple more times during this year. Certainly, once the Grand Lodge is built, it's going to put a whole new spin on things.
Oh, yes.
Where do you see it going? Where do you see, well, first of all, how much time do you have left at the SRU here at Fort Belvoir? Are you eligible for orders? Are you going to stay put for a while? Or
That's a good question. So I have a date to move next summer to go to the Captain's Career Course at Fort Jackson. So we'll see what that looks like. The military is very good at not being predictable. So we'll see. I do intend to pass along this information with the next chaplain coming in. And I think because the program can be so established in a year well enough that if I have a chaplain coming in after me that maybe doesn't want to do it, we can still find experts in the community that can facilitate that. That is, this is a little bit of a side note, but some of the continuity at the SRU have been 10, 15-year connections with volunteer organizations around us. And the SRU is so good at leaning on its volunteer neighbors that I think that this program, it doesn't have to be dependent on a chaplain once it's established. So I look forward to that, building those partnerships, because even if a chaplain didn't want to do it, there are plenty of people that would be willing to host this sort of event.
I think we would carry it on for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
And definitely in some form or fashion. I think a chaplain is appropriate for it. I really do, because the spiritual aspect of it is huge. And I think that's one of the things that people lose the quickest when moral injury affects them. It's that whole questioning of God. And have I been abandoned by God? So I would really like to see it led by a chaplain, but certainly we could get a whole group of people involved. I could see it going all sorts of ways. And then major, when do you become a major?
That's a very good question. I need Captain's Career Course, which is why I'm moving early.
Okay.
I typically would be in this position for 3 years, but I have to get my Captain's Career Course, and I'm eligible for promotion in 2025.
Okay.
So it's kind of last minute deal.
Okay.
A lasting effect of COVID was that we got a little backlogged in our schools. So we'll see.
It'll be here before you know it.
It is. So something I wanted to offer with the question that you just asked earlier was with the other retreats that we have planned, there's so many different aspects to moral injury too that we're seeing at the SRU. Is it doesn't just affect the soldier, it affects their family, and it affects the cadre and the staff, because they see all of these things every day. I could counsel with 10, 15 people and hear 10, 15 stories. So my hope in the next 2 retreats is to see how far moral injury has impacted us and do some pilots with our next group's going to be families in September. And then in October, we're going to bring staff and cadre out and really work the aspects of moral injury that have kind of seeped in, beyond the surface level, and try and find out how we can work that too.
Sure. Yeah, I think it'd be important for family because, we see the children, to refer to them as hidden heroes, but we see that very often their home environment can be similar to that of living with an alcoholic parent. I don't want to bring my friends over to the house because I don't know when mom and dad is going to get really upset and get really loud and really crazy, so I always go over there and I don't really introduce anybody to my dad or my mom. And I think it has a real impact on the family. How can it not? That's fantastic. Well, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us, explain about the course and the benefits. And I think it's a great program. I think that for all the Army generals out there listening that you need to fund this and get more chaplains involved. Which is there interest from other chaplains? How is there a way to kind of template this and offer it out within the chaplain corps? Is that a possibility?
Absolutely. The education program that you have to go through to become a chaplain in an SRU, you have to go through a trauma training program. They've opened up a doctoral. They give everyone a chance to get a free doctorate.
Wow.
And most of the topics we took our classes on were moral injury, and so we're stirring up the dust. We're getting people interested in developing their own definitions of what's going on with moral injury. And so, yes, there is a wonderful way to package what we're doing, because I have to write a dissertation on it. So to finish up that program that the Army put me through, I am going to be writing about these experiences. Maybe not specifically these retreats, but the effect of treating moral injury and spirituality on a large scale level in the Army. So yes, in academic circles, it's getting passed around. The Army continuity of chaplaincy will continue to pass it down to the next chaplain that comes, as well as the hospital chaplains and the other SRU chaplains. We all talk. And so I have told my friends that the hidden gem here in Haymarket, you need to find this hidden gem because you need this. We make sure to spread the word that way too through our circle. So my hope is that it continues because nobody will do it like I do it here. That's the uniqueness of chaplaincy. But everybody knows that when they can see the effects of healing moral injury, that that is what we came in the Army to do. That is our passion and our joy. And chaplains are desperate to find ways to heal that. And I think that drive inside of each chaplain will get them to continue on with programs just like this.
Yeah, well, that's great. And so how long before we get to call you Dr. Captain?
Oh, that's funny. I don't know. I'm looking to graduate next summer. So I'll be writing my pray for me. Anyone that can hear this, as far as these wavelengths go, please pray for me. Hold me in good spirits, anything. I have to turn in my first project at the beginning of October, and then my first chapter, and then hopefully I'll have my dissertation finished by next summer.
Okay. We will. We'll pray for you for sure.
Thank you.
That's awesome. So when you go to the captain school, if you have your PhD, can you just get a waiver for that?
That is a great idea. Chaplain Green, our chief of chaplains. Yes. If you can hear this right now, sir.
When I was in, they gave waivers out like it was candy. I saw guys with brain waivers, for God's sake.
Oh, I wish more than anything that could be a reality.
Yeah, I think that's the way it should go. Really, you put the time in on the dissertation and the course and the class and everything. Just promote to major and be done with it. Really.
I thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us. And for our listeners, if you have any questions or suggestions, you can reach us at podcast@willingwarriors.org. And we'll have another episode next Monday. Until then, thanks for listening.
The Welcome Home podcast is brought to you by Willing Warriors, a nonprofit organization serving active duty service members and veterans since 2012. To learn more, please visit our webpage at willingwarriors.org.